Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Don't forget to use the promo code DNVR25. You'll save 25% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Drew Kreisman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons. And on this episode, we wrap it all up, folks. The season finally, sadly, happily, mercifully, comes to an end in the only way it possibly could, getting walked off on after a blown save by the worst team in baseball. Or we'll see how that all does. We'll wrap up all of the fun stuff going on around the league, too. There's still a little bit of drama left to unfold in this day. Not quite as much chaos as we were hoping for, but still some potential for some chaos. And, of course, we'll talk all about the news that the Rockies have removed the interim tag from Bill Schmidt, and he will be the general manager of the team moving forward. A lot to digest today, Patrick. It's also just that's it, man. Season's over. There's also that just kind of end of – I feel like we need a phrase for the just sort of postseason depression that sets in when you just go – and then that was the last pitch, out, run, whatever of the season. And regardless of where you stand on the spectrum of everything else we're going to talk about today, no more Rockies baseball until next year. And it's just kind of that, feeling that.
And it comes at an odd time. Again, we'll get to the game with them losing to a 110-loss team in walk-off fashion after having a 4-0 lead, it being a weird bullpen game. There's no Story, Chuck, or Crone in the starting lineup. There's a new GM that some people might not be too happy about. So weird confluence of events here in the final game of the season. But you know what? There is postseason baseball if you're a baseball fan to get excited about. And we've got an off season to figure out, see if we can kind of ameliorate, if you will, some of the issues that the Rockies have had this past year with being on the road and whatnot. Thank you very much. I don't say it quite as much as I write it. It rolls off the tongue there quite nicely. But you know what? It's baseball, so even in a losing fashion like this, even when you might be frustrated with your team, and believe me, Rockies fans aren't the only ones right now that are frustrated at their team. I'm sure there's even some Dodgers fans who've been watching all game long who have probably saying, had they made this move earlier or had they done this, they would have won 108 games or would have won 107 games and been able to take the Dodgers to a game 163. And there's a couple teams in the American League that are going to be thinking the same thing when this thing is all said and done with and they don't make the postseason. So there can only be one big winner. Sure, there are 10 postseason teams, but there are 20 that really don't get to sniff it whatsoever. And even if you do get to sniff it, it still smells like crap.
Yeah.
It smells like crap if you don't get in.
Well, you read my mind here. I was talking with my fiance this morning, and she asked me straight up. She goes, so who had the more disappointing season, the Rockies or the Padres? So that's easy. It's obviously the Padres did, right? And so – even if you want to get into all the weeds about how things maybe could have gone better for the Rockies if they'd lost more games, got a higher draft pick.
That's right.
Maybe they shift.
No, you're right. I think it has to be the Padres was more disappointing just because of the expectations. I don't think Rockies fans had those expectations. I think even if you look at the expectations of, as you were kind of touching on, like, all right, hey, if you're out of it, ooh, you get some interesting prospects for Story and Gray. What if you package them together? And, CJ Crone was good. You could turn around and deal him. Hey, they're going to maybe go outside the organization for new GM. Like, oh, man, there's some potential there. That's nothing like the potential the Padres had when you look at what they did on paper. You look at their transactions and you go, okay, we're talking about a potential World Series this year. Whereas with the Rockies, had they maybe met the expectations, you go, all right, that expedites the timeline, but you're still, fairly far away. You got to make some more moves, but you feel better about the chances of it going. Those two things are light years apart. The Padres were 162 games away from going to the World Series, and now they're still 162 games from doing that.
Exactly.
They got to wait till next year.
It really does blow my mind. They finished with 5 more wins than the Colorado Rockies. And then you get into the grand scope of things. And obviously I was thinking more big picture and stuff yesterday. I promise we'll get to it. We'll get into it. But there was this sense of like the San Diego Padres own the worst winning percentage in the history of Major League Baseball. They're 30 of 30 of the teams that are remaining active. They have the worst winning percentage. And they've been around a lot longer than the Rockies and the Marlins and some of the other teams that are down there near the bottom, right? And the Rays who have been, but they've gotten up in the last couple of years. And they haven't been to the postseason in a 162-game season in over a decade, right? And they were not only supposed to be like, hey, we got a chance to get back to the postseason for the first time. And what, like you said, they were supposed to contend. And that's just so much more flabbergasting to me that like those, I really legitimately, and you won't hear me say this on the show very often, folks. And I'm not talking about, we know there are some, look, everyone's got members of their community who on Twitter don't necessarily show the best for that community of fans. I'll leave it at that. And the San Diego Padres certainly have their group. And a lot of us have interacted with some of them over the years. But you feel for the legit, the people who are just like you, the Rockies fans who've been through it, man, who've really been through it. And you're dealing with some hard news right now, and you're frustrated and angry at this team. And yeah, but I do think maybe it's almost a commiserating thing. It's like we've been battling with the Padres all year. I've been doing this back and forth, and now it's almost like we all need to put our arms around each other and be like, God, neither franchise can seem to, no matter what, just can't seem to break out of this funk. Just can't seem to let your fans be happy for longer than those briefest of windows. And it's been the same for those two teams since they've both existed. And like you said, for several others, but it's brutal. It doesn't make it any less heartbreaking to watch unfold like that. So bummer.
That's what being a fan is about, is really, dealing through those tough times, and hopefully you're rewarded a little bit. Mets fans, they've suffered a lot, but they've won a lot too. Like not a ton, but they've won maybe 1,000 pounds worth, right? Not the full 2,000 pounds of that ton. Just recently having gone to the World Series in 2015, kind of out of nowhere, and really even taking over the city of New York for a short period of time. White Sox fans, I mean, shoot, they won the World Series in 2005, but I think this is the first time they've now gone to the postseason in back-to-back years, right? And last year was on the heels of the extended postseason. Right. They've kind of fallen off a little bit there in the Central without any competition. So we'll see what they do in the postseason. There's a lot more fan bases, I think, than we realize. I mean, I don't even know the last time I've interacted with a White Sox fan. Right. To be honest, right? So
I mean, look at the energy with the Mariners right now, and it looks like, sadly, I haven't seen it, the comeback. It's like, and it's just, and you saw the call. I think everyone saw the call that went viral.
Dave Sims,
energy
fantastic.
Around the Mariners with the Mitch Haniger single, and they're still going to fall one game short again, heartbreaking, and they haven't been to the postseason since 2001. We all want that for Mariners fans, because especially if you're a Rockies fan or a Padres fan, or unless it's just out of spite, which to some degree I can understand. But no, you've got to pull for those franchises, because again, when you look at it, and I was having this conversation with Goody the other day, the top 6 teams in the history of Major League Baseball, again, back to that winning percentage in the history, and it's the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Giants, Boston Red Sox. Chicago Cubs are 6th, so they're out this year. But yeah, and it's just those there they all are again. It's looking like we're going to get Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, of course, chance to play spoiler again as they've been doing this last pretty close to a decade now, which is pretty cool. But you're going to see A's fall just short. So the Astros are back in. They've kind of gotten into that a little bit lately, but you see a lot of those familiar Cardinals back in the postseason, as always. So it's just like, man, whenever one of those other teams can sneak in, to me, it always feels like it's one of us. Like once the season ends, especially like in this moment, like I said, in the post after game 162, one after game
161.
After game 161, and the season is codified. It's over. It's a thing. And then you go, like you said, the White Sox are interesting. I would have loved the Mariners or the Blue Jays to do the thing and go on a run, because it feels like, hey, one of us made it. One of the also-rans from most of the time made it. It was going to be tough for me to embrace that with the Padres, but I'd have done it eventually. Tatis would have made it easy once I started watching the games. But it's nice when one of the also-rans can get in.
It is. It's better for balance. And, it does make you think there could be something to the idea of winning organizations, right? This idea that, the same teams keep winning over and over again. But maybe that's also those larger cities, right? Those metropolises back when there were only 16 teams that played in MLB, and you either represented the American League, you were one of the top 8 teams. Well, you were the top of 8 teams, and there's only 8 in the National League.
Right.
And so there could be some history to that as well. But, as you mentioned with teams like Tampa Bay, how they're able to figure it out with a shoestring budget. And, maybe we can we'll get into the idea that, hey, maybe the Rockies will start to figure out some things like that too. And, the Rockies will have their day. They had their day for a minute, in 17 and 18. And they were the darlings of MLB, but people like rooting for the Rockies. I think as we're talking about certain fan bases and you feel bad for them, I think people feel bad for our listeners right here, right now.
Straight up.
Right. And they're like, the Rockies are so inoffensive. It's like, you got to go to Colorado in the summertime. Coors Field is always going to be on your top 5 on your list of places to go. It's like if you are, you're going to Milwaukee or you're going to Wisconsin, you're like, hey, I'd love to go to Lambeau Field. That's just this iconic place. Coors Field is that iconic place for Denver and Colorado. And so, Rockies fans are cool. They're relaxed. They're also fans of other teams too.
Right.
And that's something that, people definitely all around baseball and all around the country, they want to see the Rockies win too. They're one of those beloved darling teams without really any scandals. That's the other thing too. The Mariners just had that issue last offseason where they were talking about, we manipulated service time with Jared Kelenic, and we're not going to be bringing back Kyle Seager, and saying some other things. And the Mets have had some issues in their front office. The Rockies have done a pretty good job of staying out of those scandals, and I think that helps, and that can enhance the interest in other fan bases saying, yeah, come on, Rockies, let's get it together. We'd love to see you guys win. Your fans deserve some success too, a little bit more.
Yeah, there was something that happened yesterday, and this is perhaps unfair of me, but I'm going to go into an ad break so we can separate two in between. But I'm going to say this. There was a thing that happened in the world of sports yesterday. While obviously a lot of people were really angry at the Rockies.
Wrestling is not a sport, Drew. Oh, no, sorry.
With CU football, for those of you that saw it. And I know my brain doesn't work how it's supposed to, but it essentially went straight to given all of the frustration and everything that's gone on in this franchise, not just in the last couple of years, but for decades, like you were just saying, at the very least, they are inoffensive, and that ain't nothing. I've never in my life seen a Rockies coach or a player or a GM treat someone who is just doing their job like that. And I know CU football hasn't scored in 4 games or whatever it is, and you're frustrated and you're angry. But again, you don't think these other guys get frustrated too at the losing? No one likes to lose. I'll tell you that much right now. You may think some people are okay with it based on whatever else. We'll dive into it. But no one likes to lose. Not in pro sports. That's not what you get in sports to do. So let's get into it. But we got to prepare ourselves. So grab your Breck brew. I've got the Juice Drop IPA right here. You got to grab your Breck brew. If you got your Celsius, that's good. It's still Celsius season. It's always Celsius season, especially if you're slightly more health conscious than I am, which doesn't take a whole lot with all the Breck brews and the Wagyu beef and all of that. But seriously, the seltzer's delicious. You can get 15 can samplers of either down at your local King Soopers liquor store. You get a bigger one, of course, the DNVR bar, for being a member of the family. Do subscribe today at thednvr.com. You get access to all the written content, constant discounts, access to our Discord channel, a free shirt, and you get to come hang out with us down at the bar. Get to go and be a part of the DNVR tailgate parties. Man, those look like fun. I got to get out and be a part of that. And they've got sexy pizza for you. That's right. Part of what they're doing out there is all-you-can-eat sexy pizza and Breckenridge beer with the DNVR Broncos family. It's $20 to get in at 18th and Federal next to the stadium, and then it's all you can eat. You get a party with all of our people, hang out. You can also get round-trip tickets on the party bus, so you can go down to the DNVR bar and chill. The pizza's fantastic. You gotta get in on the sexy pizza at the tailgate parties. Hoping the Broncos can pull this one out. If you're listening to this later and they didn't, sorry. But they're having a fun season still. I'm into it. Let's all support these other teams. If we're going to be frustrated about the Rockies, got to go out and support the Nuggets and Avalanche and hope that the Broncos can battle their way back into relevancy as well.
I think the next tailgate I will be going, and I probably won't have a ticket to the Broncos game. Like I there's no rules against that, and
Right.
that sounds crazy, but I feel like it's one of those things where if you don't intentionally think, well, wait a minute, I just kind of want to go and hang out with those guys a little bit, and then go to the bar after, but I still want to get that tailgate vibe in. And for $20, I mean, if it's all I can drink and all I can eat with pizza, not just any pizza, sexy pizza, it's really almost like, yeah, you know what? It's going to be cheaper than doing anything else in the morning or early afternoon. So it's just a good investment, I think. Really, that's how I'm selling it, at least to myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. I might try. I might pull that same move. I might have to back you up on that.
Like, oh, were you seated? And then
oh yeah,
it would be weird. Yeah,
in the orange seats. So. All right, Patrick. Yes, let's get into it. The Bill Schmidt news, something that, yes, even I knew was coming, even though a month or so ago I was still on the train of, I think they're going to go out and look. They did not. They did not go out and look. They did not do the full interview process in the offseason. They just decided a day before the season ended for some reason to just kind of announce it.
It's actually good timing. And if you know your public relations, I think it's
sure.
I think it's sliding in just before the postseason, right? Because there are rules about making certain announcements like this.
Yeah,
so you can't do it during the postseason. And if you wait to do it, November 1st, whenever the final out of the World Series is made, then that becomes the story for the entirety of the off season. It almost becomes front page news. It still is. But in a weird way, it kind of, I don't think it entirely sweeps it under the rug, but does it when the team is on the road, which, again, we know is just easier. And that's just a common thing on how you do business. Frankly, the most recent piece I wrote about, Trevor Story kind of getting this great send-off by Rockies fans, by you guys out there doing that and giving that to him, and his reception of that, and him kind of saying goodbye to you guys. It's just rare, especially when guys are on the trade block. Typically those trades are made when the team is on the road. That's kind of an industry standard, for better or worse. And so, I don't think it's really trying to sweep it under the rug, because, they're still, we'll see if they have an immediate availability, coming up this week to talk about this off season or plans, or if there's going to be other announcements about a new team president, things of that nature. It kind of is what it is. So the timing is weird, but in the grand scheme of things, I guess you understand it a little bit, and you say, okay, let this guy go and do his job. Not have to worry about, when's the big press conference. He can just kind of go dive in, and he's already been doing that. Believe it or not, he
did chat with KOA, and there's some stuff. He's been certainly more transparent than the last guy. Again. Bar wasn't set a lot more. The bar wasn't set high. He's been way more transparent than Jeff Bridich. But so I want to say this thing. Somebody said this to me a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, and I really wish I can't find the comment again. And at the time, I thought that's a really good point, man. Well said. And I wish I had taken this person's name down, because this comment has like spread from interesting point to fascinating philosophy that I'm going to continue to apply to almost every area of my life. And it was in the conversation about the Nolan Arenado trade. And he said to me this, and I'm sorry I can't attribute this again to the person who said it. At the time, I didn't think enough of it, but I've thought about it every day since. This person said to me, we all have a hard time separating the context of the Nolan Arenado trade from the Nolan Arenado trade, right? And those are two different things. And he's like, you're trying to talk about the trade, war for war, dollar for thing, whatever. But there's this whole other thing that casts a giant shadow, as well it should, over it. And with that issue, I completely understood the shadow and always did. This thing here is where I get myself into some trouble, because there's the thing, which is, will Bill Schmidt make the Rockies a better baseball team? What are his ideas and philosophies? What does he plan to do moving forward? And arguably most importantly, will he be allowed to do that? All of those things are what is, on the table that I like to sit at, if we will, right? But then, of course, there's this other conversation, the context of the thing, which is Dick Monfort never goes outside the organization. The Colorado Rockies have not been successful. They've been insular. They refuse to do things in a certain fashion. And by not doing those things, they essentially are continuing a cycle of futility or mediocrity. Pick your favorite word there, right? And while I find that conversation fascinating, and I'm sure we will keep hashing it out here for a minute, it is where I find that emotions almost always get the best of us. They did with David Dahl and the initial announcement of the All-Star game and the initial prognostications that the Rockies were going to lose 100 games and all of these types of things. And that's why I do prefer to stay, right, on the other table. But I feel like there have been times in the past that I have failed to hear that other side, the context conversation, because I do find it practically unnavigable. And that's a me issue. So I don't want to put out there like, I don't hear you, just because I'm not also angry at this, because my position is, I actually think Bill Schmidt makes perfect sense in this role if the Rockies pair it with another thing that I think they're likely to do and allow him to do what he's going to do. So that's where, that's my take on it, right, at this point, is that it's difficult to separate those two conversations. And I totally understand why. And so what I want to do is to sort of respect the contextual conversation, but almost remove myself from it, because I don't know that there's much that I can say that's going to make anyone feel any better. And the last thing that I want to do is feel like I'm kicking Rockies fans when I'm down. You're my people. You've always been my people from the very beginning. And I don't mean from the beginning of BSN. I mean from when I turned 5 years old and entered T-ball. You've always been my people. So I don't want to put anybody down. I can only say that my reaction to the news was, okay, you can do this right, but you have to. Because no matter how you talk about the rest of it, this is a PR nightmare. It's an absolute PR disaster. And so I get why they just want to put on their blinders and go, PR schmear, the media always hates us. People are always thinking that the only thing we can do to make people like us back is win. And on that, they're right. That may be the one thing that everybody involved in the media, the fans, and in the front office agree upon, that the only way to fix this is to win.
It cures all problems, right? Winning cures all problems. I was thinking about, going back and, right, because there are a lot of people frustrated since, the organization did publicly say that they were going to go, they were going to conduct a search in the off season, and that they were going to look outside the organization. Not necessarily because, there is a C-League rule in place, similar to the Rooney Rule in the NFL, just saying that, you're required to, interview minority candidates, and really just give some opportunity out there, to just some other candidates, because again, it gives more presence and awareness of people that are really quality candidates. Like that's how, we first heard about Kim Eng, where she was a name that popped up and she had gotten a lot of interviews. And
Right.
you start to know, I mean, we did an episode in the off season about, okay, who are the best candidates? And a lot of them were folks that were interviewed previously. And you go, okay, that's a good sign. That's an indicator that they are on the cusp of something, right? So they didn't do that. They failed to do that, and you go, well, okay, they liked what they saw, but it's still frustrating. It feels like it was a lie. It feels like maybe there wasn't entirely a lot of honesty there, and we may never know the truth to that, but
Yeah.
you have a feeling. You can have a thought and say, hey, I understand why you think there was a lie by the front office there, or by the owner.
Yeah. I want to jump in. I talked for a long time, so I want to jump in real quickly and then let you get right back in there, because there's just a lot to say on this. But when it came to that issue, I will say this, and somebody asked me this, and it's fair because I did talk about my sources and stuff. Do you feel like you were lied to? And my answer to that question is no. I don't feel like I was lied to. I kept up on this situation basically on a weekly basis. I think things changed. I will say, to your point, that is the thing that I am most frustrated about. That is the place where I do feel like I don't just empathize, but sympathize with the Rockies fandom here, which is the not going out and just conducting the search, just doing the due diligence, which is something, again, that they said they were going to do publicly. I was told privately that they were going to do. And I do think, and they said this yesterday, and I get why people don't want to take them at their word. So again, but it is also part of our jobs as reporters to report what they say. And Dick Monfort did say that they did intend to do that. Now, I understand why people, again, if you feel like you were lied to last time, why isn't he lying to you this time? Fair enough. There's nothing I can say that's going to convince you of anything otherwise. I will just tell you that no, from what I viewed personally, what I observed, and the questions that I asked to people who were at times in the room, my understanding was, yes, that was their intention. And that I can't get too deeply into what changed, but maybe I can. Maybe I can talk about this. I just have to be very careful with my language. And I talked about it in the Discord channel today. But I have had multiple sources. I'm going to fall right into this well again. Just in defense of the sources that I had before. Listen to what my sources say now. I get how it sounds. Look, it is what it is. If I'm wrong in a couple of weeks, month, whatever it is, I'll say that again too. It's wrong again. I'll be wrong many, many times throughout anyone who's listened to this show for a long time knows. Pretty used to being wrong by now. I believe that there is another front office move coming, and that impacted this entire situation. And I'll be very curious to see if that A, happens, and B, in any way satiates some of the fans. I think some fans actually will find it to be an amenable situation, and some will say, it doesn't matter to me. Fair enough. But I think if the Rockies do further front office restructuring that involves bringing in somebody from outside the organization, technically, that will go a long way. Toward winning the PR battle, don't know. Toward actually solving the problem, that I'm much more confident in. So again, I want to give people space to feel what they're feeling right now. And maybe that's a conversation for tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Let's get Shakespearean on the show today. But at some point, and maybe you're right. Maybe this is the trick of the PR of it. I said I was going to talk for a short minute and get out, didn't I? To say and do it when they did, and just have us sit on it, because then the conversation, once the World Series is over, can move to, okay, what are they going to do? But yeah, okay. I promise. I promise. I'm out for a minute. I want to get more of your thoughts on this, and I know you're tied in to a lot.
Yeah, they got to win, right? They got to win. I think that's the thing that would cure it. And to pull from a wrestling term that we know here is, with interviewing some more people. Hey, they would have put over some other people, right? They would have give somebody else the shine, would have give somebody else the rub to say, hey, that helps them advance in their career. And it also maybe get some new ideas and get some fresh blood in an organization. When you've, historically not been a very successful franchise, or even if you just want to look at the last 3 seasons have not been successful. Now going into 2019, again, all the pieces were there for them to do it. So I sort of give them some credit, might even stretch the window of contention to a slight degree and say, oh, maybe even the second half of 2016, or there are the pieces there, and say, all right, there were like 3 seasons really where the Rockies were contenders and they made the postseason twice there. But it's been now 2.5 seasons of, irrelevance. And you say, maybe we haven't figured this out clearly. We know that Coors Field has its own issues, and it's a special place for better or worse, and it takes some special minds that are familiar with the situation. And I think the Rockies are always going to have people that are familiar with the situation, right? Like they've got close to 100 coaches, I'm sure, maybe not exactly, but a lot of coaches that are familiar with the situation. So no one's going to really forget that piece. But what I think gets lost by not bringing in that fresh blood is some new radical thinking ideas. Now, obviously, if someone just comes in and says, oh, well, what if you had a $100 million starting rotation and you went and sought out those guys? Well, that probably wouldn't work. Then again, these people that typically get hired for these positions, or a lot of the assistant general managers that get interviewed for a spot like this to take the top, job as GM, they've got some serious background in some Ivy League schools, right? They're young, they're forward-thinking people where they can balance and say, all right, well, if you're not going to allow me to do this, I can try this other thing. And so I think some of the frustration with fans is it's just the same old. But the one thing that I will say is, there has been some real positive change under Bill Schmidt. Is it enough to move the needle to get them, to be more of a perennial contender, or does that move up the timeline to contend, where it still feels like it's going to be 4 or 5 years away? I don't know. That remains to be seen, but he's already been working on hiring some analytic people. We know Scott Van Linton, I believe that's his name, was brought in from the Nationals organization. I've spoken with him. He's getting himself acclimated on a lot of things. He's diving in head first. That's essentially
everybody where he's
Bill
from.
Schmidt hire. He's from New Jersey. It should be known. They're hiring a few other people from the analytics department that they're going to try to, bolster that. And so, and as we said, Bill Schmidt is around a lot more. He's a lot more accountable. He's been at the ballpark every day. And so I think that's had some positive impact on the team. I think that's had some positive impact on the coaching staff, and it's allowed us to kind of pick his brain a little bit more. And so does that add up to, a winning culture? Does that add up to maybe making the postseason next year? And what are they going to do financially? Some comments have come out from Greg Fiesel about, what they're going to do that suggests maybe they'll be spending $25 million, let's say. That's just a ballpark figure. I don't know. So I understand the frustration by Rockies fans. It seems like a lateral move in some ways, but there are some positives to be taken out of this. And I don't know. We're going to see, like all of you, we're going to see what happens. And it's an off season. And they're 1 year away from the pandemic, where They're in the top 10 in attendance, so they've got some money to spend. I don't think it'll just be on a John Gray. I mean, maybe they fudged a few things, right? Like you said, did they lie? No, but maybe they fudged some things. Are they fudging what they're going to do this offseason and bringing in some veterans and spending some money? And say, the one comment was, hey, in 2023, we're going to get the payroll back to where it was in 18-19.
Yeah.
But it's in the ballpark of 2018-19. So you can fudge the numbers. And, where does that go? Again, I don't know, because Nolan Arenado is set to make another, I think, an additional $10 million that the Rockies have to pay the Cardinals. Right. So that $10 million, that counts towards your payroll. And are you taking credit for something that you really shouldn't be? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how much this is, the ball under the cup trick. Yeah. We're going to find out. But I think that's where a lot of people feel like, is that there's a lot of moving parts, and it doesn't seem like it's entirely on the up and up.
Yeah, not sure what to say about, again, on the up and up. Again, I don't. That one's tough to me to get the
Ken here actually said something really cool. They didn't lie to us; they misled us. There's a difference in that. And again, I don't necessarily even know if misled is the word I would want to use. Again, but it's not. I don't necessarily know it was a lie, but it feels like one. I think.
And fair enough. And you know what? If I say to you, hey, Patrick, meet me at the DNVR bar at 7, I promise you I'm going to be there. Absolutely. And then my car won't start. Whatever happens, it doesn't happen. I can't get there, and I don't meet you at the bar at 7. And I go, hey, man, it was my intention to be at the bar at 7 o'clock, and I didn't manage to get there. Have I lied to you? So again, these are.
But what if you want to use that scenario? What if it was because, hey, I had to stop to get gas? You go, no, come on. Didn't you value my time?
Sure.
Shouldn't you have been there at 7? Shouldn't you have gotten gas previously? Isn't that all within your control?
100% fair. And that's why.
This is all that gray area, right?
Exactly. Yeah. To get to, you were talking about, here's the quote in the Denver Post. In 2022, we're going to go up a little bit. Could have used some more specifics there, because then he says in 2023, we'll be back to 18-19 levels, which suggests to me they're saying, give us one more year to recover from the pandemic. They won't show us their books. So again, gets back in that whole trust problem that everyone has with the team. And I'm with you. And you and I had this conversation. We've had it publicly. We've had it privately. We've talked about this a lot. What do they have to spend? What really are they going to do, considering they don't have the Arenado and Story contracts on the books anymore? And saying we're going to go up a little bit didn't really shine a ton of light on that. It didn't really give us that one. So it's like, okay, yeah. But then, we'll be back to 18-19 levels, where they were right around, the middle of the pack in baseball in the next couple of years. And one last point that I'll make on that is they've almost kind of walked back their comments too about trying to compete immediately next season, and saying things like, we hope to take a big step forward next season and then get back to competing in years after that. And I actually think that's the more reasonable strategy, and one that you can pull off given your resources. But we can get into all of that again here in just a minute. We can keep this going for a while, but I do have to, speaking of resources, help out our friends at Ball Corporation. They're absolutely fantastic. Help them out. They help us out by creating sustainable materials, by creating aluminum cans, jars, glass, all kinds of phenomenal stuff that can be reused essentially forever. Super useful stuff. They've got just top of the charts ratings from environmental groups, and also human rights campaign with the Corporate Equality Index score, of over. No, you can't have over 100%, of 100%. Of over 100%, that would be impressive. But like at that point, they're like curing disease and stuff. Like you can't, like they just treat everybody super, super awesome. You get equal opportunity to get hired, to advance, to get pay raises, all of those kinds of things. So if you're looking for some work, text GOLDEN to 77222. You'll get linked to open positions. You can also go directly to jobs.ball.com, search for Golden. That's jobs.ball.com and search for Golden. or simply text Golden to 77222. You really could not find a better place to work. Speaking of finding a better place, if you want someone to find your better place, you want it to be all smoothed out, nice and clean and nice and manscaped. That's right. Use the promo code DNVR at manscaped.com. You get 20% off plus free shipping. You don't want to get any nicks. You don't want to have any problems down there. You want top of the line tools for your family jewels. That's what the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer, all that stuff comes in there. There's 2 free gifts if you get the big Performance Package 4.0. They got spritzer, they got deodorant, they got the most comfortable pair of boxers that you have ever worn in your life. Really nice shed travel bag. So again, check out everything they've got. Treat yourself and whoever's treating you by using promo code DNVR at manscaped.com to get 20% off plus free shipping. Again, that's DNVR at manscaped.com.
The thing I keep coming back to with this organization is, and we've talked about this for years, when you're a small market club, you can't deal with major setback. Teams like the Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, they can get creative because they've got the financial flexibility to do that in so many different ways. And man,
I'd get real creative with $2 billion.
The Pittsburgh Pirates, in many ways, I don't know if this would have solved everything, but had the Pittsburgh Pirates not gone after Chris Archer, they would still have Austin Meadows, Tyler Glasnow, and now rookie Shane Baz.
Yeah.
So they gave up those 3 guys, and they got really nothing back in Chris Archer. And so that's really set them back. They've had issues for a while, but that one singular trade set them back. And I think for the Rockies, we are still feeling the effects, and it will be it really could be a few years. It doesn't mean it can't be overcome, but we're still feeling the effects of Dick Monfort choosing to stick with Jeff Bridich over Nolan Arenado. Like you think about the end of 2019 season, those 2 guys, have this issue, and it comes to a head, and Arenado's the one that has to go, and now you're sending money to St. Louis. You're bringing back some good prospects, but the other element to that we're not realizing, because here we are at the end of the season, Trevor Story, he sits out the final game of the season. You go, why didn't you trade him at the deadline? Well, we weren't getting the offers we thought we were going to get, and it wasn't better than a compensation pick. True or false, we don't know. But had you traded him in the offseason, you would have had a lot of teams knocking down your door, and you easily would have gotten something better than a compensation pick. But you can't trade Arenado.
You can do them both in the offseason.
The same offseason. So think about that domino effect at how they had to get rid of Arenado. They couldn't get rid of Story at that point. And and you look at what Cleveland ended up getting, a decent package of players, for Francisco Lindor, no superstars, but Ahmed Rosario, is finding some new positions in the outfield. And I think Andres Jimenez is a nice piece. So again, it's been this domino effect. And then you go, man, what could the Rockies have gotten in a different year? Maybe had they made a move sooner on Bridich and kept Arenado, or traded Arenado after 2019 and made a better decision and say, look, this is not going to fix itself. Let's go ahead and move Arenado. And then the next offseason, let's move Story, because honestly, we're not really going to be contenders. We think we got a good squad, but we're not going to be contenders. Let's trade him. And those prospects that you could have gotten a year or 2 ago for an Arenado, for a Story, for maybe even John Gray, we'll see what happens if they can bring him back. And you go, hey, those guys are already on the precipice. We've seen it. Gomber's already jumped in. Fantastic pickup. Elihuris Montero is jumping in there and making some big moves in AAA. And you go, wow, hey, they've kind of rebounded pretty darn quickly, but Dick Monfort went with Bridich over Arenado, and we're still kind of seeing those dominoes fall in line. And it's going to be a few years. That's what happens when, again, you're a small market team. If you make a certain wrong choice, it could have very lasting effects on your organization. Happened with Mike Hampton, right?
Oh, 100%.
It's a shame.
One of the very few things that I keep up that I can actually watch during the baseball season is, if it's based on a comic book, I'll watch it, right? So the what ifs are going on with Marvel right now, and that idea that you go back to this one moment in time and you change one thing. I even wrote an article. I'll probably write another one or two based on the premise because, and I think you're right, I would back it up even one more step because I think there was an event that precipitated that. And that was, and this is to your point, 100% on Dick Monfort. This wasn't even a Jeff Bridich thing. So the other thing, because I could, if I was still in the debating mood right now, I could have battled back on some of what you said and say, well, at least that was all Jeff Bridich, right? At least Bill Schmidt so far hasn't alienated any superstars. I could have gone down the list or whatever. But I'd go back one step further and say it was the letting go of DJ LeMahieu. There are certain people who are important to the culture of an organization, far beyond what is even measurable on the field. And I always thought DJ was underrated for his measurables. I banged that drum for years. It was always my answer. Who's the most underrated player in baseball? DJ LeMahieu. Don't have to think about it. Nowadays, I'd have to think a little bit harder. I'd have to go out there. But it was DJ for 6 years running. That was, in my mind, the dumbest thing that Dick Monfort has done in the last decade. And I know people would haggle. You say choosing Arenado over Bridich or Bridich over Arenado. Obviously terrible. That's worse in a vacuum. But he wouldn't have even been in the position to have to make that decision if he'd have just opened up the pocketbooks and made one exception for one guy that means everything to you. Or he should have, and he didn't. That's a gigantic miss. That's huge. And so to me, like,
that would have been maybe an extra $5-6 million. Like that's
right.
it over 2 years too.
Right.
On top of it, again, we don't know what the actual figures were exchanged, but it wouldn't have been that much. Yeah,
and he's owned up to it, which is kind of like hearing your girlfriend say, "I never should have cheated on you." It's like, great, Dick, you never should have done that. We all know, but that was the one, and then it precipitated.
And that shouldn't be that big of a domino if you think about it. Really, like losing DJ LeMahieu.
Doubled down on everything after that. They didn't go to their star player and appease him and say, "Here's the human part of making it work. We're sorry it couldn't happen with him. We're going to try to do a little bit of what you want. Even if it's unreasonable, do it. Do what Nolan Arenado wants. But to stick your heels in the mud, it was stupid. It was crappy. I said at the time, and again, back to the point that the person made to me on Twitter, the context of it, that was the context of it. And the Rockies screwed up 10 out of 10. And then by the Rockies, I mean Dick Monfort and Jeff Bridich specifically. Screwed up 10 out of 10 of the things that led up to the Nolan Arenado trade. But to twist it back around just a little bit more to make my other point, that doesn't mean, at least to me, that you go, okay, so no amount of what Austin Gomber or Elehuris Montero does can ever make up for it. Because in my mind, those guys are awesome, and it turns out that the Rockies are actually better off without star players, which is something I've been on for a long time. And you all know I've been there for a while, which is hard for me because that's the one thing the Rockies have always had. But I don't think you win with star players here. I'm not down with you can make your raise point here. I don't want to undercut it by saying I'm not sure. Maybe you'll sell me now. Maybe I'm in a place where I can buy it now. I don't know they can do all that wheeling and dealing. I don't know that they can have zero people for their fans to latch on to and care about and do the thing. But I don't think I think if star players helped you win pennants in Colorado, they'd have won a pennant in Colorado.
Very true. Well, Tampa Bay Rays don't have any fans, so that's how they can get away with trading the entire 40-man roster over the course of 18 months. But one guy that has never been on the Tampa Bay Rays, although he's been on just about every other team, was today's starter in the Rockies game. Unfortunately, we know they lost 5-4. Again, Story, Blackmon, Crone, not in the lineup.
Crone and Blackmon did get into the game and throw out base hits, which I thought was hilarious.
DJ Crone also, that his double, his 60th extra base hit, only the 21st player in team history to ever do that.
Isn't that wild?
Which is pretty good. Yeah, I mean, they've had, Helton did it 10 times, and Bichette and Walker did it 6 times each. I think we had Arenado had 5. Vinny also had it 5. I'm going off the top of the dome here as I should. I'm a professional broadcaster, right? I should know. Tulo had 4, Cargo 4. So that he's on that list with one-timers, Charlie Hayes, Jeff Cirillo, Jeremy Burnitz. And speaking of guys like Jeremy Burnitz, because if you follow us on Twitter, DNVR_Rockies, threw out a trivia question, which Ashton Godot is part of the answer or the question. It depends on the Jeopardy style. But this is his first career start after passing through waivers 6 different times, being on the Rockies 3 different times over the last year, right? He was originally claimed by the Pirates last November. Then he ended up coming back, and then they passed him through waivers again. And then he was purchased back by Bill Schmidt from the Reds. He's the first starting pitcher, the first pitcher in any capacity from the state of Arkansas for the Rockies. How does that blow your hair back?
I love it.
There is another player that the Rockies have had from Arkansas. His name? You'll never guess it, but go ahead, throw a name out.
I was going to say there's
if it's Johan Flond, I'm just
right. Boone Logan. I don't know.
Not bad. That's a very Arkansas name.
Arkansas name, right?
It's an Arkansas name.
Jason Beimel. Chew Freeman. Okay. Chew Freeman's from Arkansas.
Born in Arkansas, at least. But the question that we put out on Twitter at
Will, you remember Chew Freeman?
I thought he was on the Rockies a lot earlier. I thought he was during the 93, 95 range. But no,
that's a
early 2000s,
right? Yeah.
Right.
I love by the way, my family love fest going on here because my mother got her pick on the on the 75 wins. Of course, they come in 1 under, but it was a wheel of no Price is Right situation where you're under by 1. She got the W on the pool. 75 wins she picked ahead, so she was closer than either of us. We gotta have her on the show more.
So we have Ashton Godot, Jonathan Daza. What do these guys have in common? For the Rockies? Sungwon Oh, Jair Jurgens, JD Klosser, Octavio Dotel, Jeremy Burnitz, Masato Yoshi, and Quentin McCracken. These, do you know
So
the answers?
I don't know for sure. I saw several people guessing on Twitter.
A lot of good guesses.
The guess that seemed closest to me was guys that had left the organization and come back. That was the one that seemed most likely to me, but I couldn't place each one of them. Jeremy, you said was Jeremy Burnitz on the list, or was he? He
was on the list.
He didn't leave the organization and come back.
Daza never left and
hasn't left and come back.
It's almost a list where if you forget about Godot and Daza and maybe even Sungwon Oh, and you just go, okay, Jair Jurgens, Octavio Dotel, Masato Yoshi, Quentin McCracken, and yeah. Let's go with just those names. Listen to the names. Just listen now. Don't think about them.
Okay. Don't think about the ball players. Listen to the names.
Sungwon Oh, Jonathan Daza, Jair Jurgens, Octavio Dotel, Masato Yoshi, Quentin McCracken.
There's something weird about the initials.
These are all players who are double unique.
Double uniques.
No one in MLB history has ever had their first name, and no one has ever had their last name.
That's amazing.
Now, JD Klosser is a weird one because you're like, well, JD, there's JD Martinez. He has the periods. He's J period, D period. Kind of like DJ LeMahieu is just DJ.
He's just DJ,
J.
CJ
So
Cron.
JD Closter's a weird one.
CJ does the dots.
There's another CJ Nikowski. Sure. A lot of guys like that. So
I don't know if
you
you
don't
saw
know
the
guys.
Nuggets
Raimel Tapia
guys.
was on the list. We talked about that in the last year. Tapia was on the list previously. Domingo Tapia last year in 2020. Maybe he was a Mariners reliever, but Domingo Tapia knocked Raimel off the list. But those are the double uniques that no one has had their first name. No one has ever had their last names.
I love that. I love that shit
That's
so
pretty
much.
cool,
I don't know
right?
if you saw it. Adam borrowed that for the Nuggets, and they got a bunch of them on the Nuggets
really?
right now. I was shocked. They got like 5 because they got some
a lot of European names.
Fako Campazzo obviously was one of them, right? He's like, okay, yep, that sounds like a double unique, but yeah, I should have gotten it. I feel
there's also been a lot less basketball players too, just in general. Like if you just go back and look, whereas MLB we're at over 22,000 ball players, right? Yeah. And 2,000 were just added from the Negro leagues this offseason too.
Right.
So that could have kind of put a wrench in some things. So, yep, just got those 8 guys. And then Jeremy Burnitz is a weird one. You go, Jeremy, there's a million Jeremys.
Jeromy.
Jerommy. Jeromy.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So good. So good. Loving it so much.
And we can't forget, first plate appearance for Daniel Bard since 2012. He only had 2 of them.
Right.
Got his 3rd today. Got a base hit today.
Right.
His first ever base hit in a career that started back in 2009.
How about that?
How about them apples?
And probably, almost certainly, we'll never have another opportunity to take an at bat. So
we'll finish with a 333 career batting average.
Yeah. And 1,000 in the NL. I said it wrong earlier on Twitter, but yeah, it's just
there you go.
In the National League is batting 1,000. I was like, I love this stupid sport. It's amazing.
So I'm a little bit worried that Bard may force a split in votes.
Come on, man.
When it comes to the Silver Slugger, they're like, I can't give it to 2 guys on the same team. Let's go over here and get. Oh no, that would really be a shame.
That'd be brutal. But because Ashton Godot, not just because he's a double unique, but because he joined the class of people who have started Major League Baseball games, which, folks, that's a small group of people. Like,
I don't know how many starters do you think how many pitchers do you think have ever started a game? We got 22,000. Overall, half of them are going to be pitchers.
Right.
We think.
About.
Maybe even less.
Slightly less because there's so many positions. A little under half. 10,000 people have started a major league. It's got to be
under that.
It's got to be under that.
I'm going to say around 8,000, let's say.
Yeah.
But that's not a lot.
I mean, yeah. Most of us have been to concerts with more people than that.
Ashton deserves a bit of an award, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think he deserves to be our draft king of the game. Not the most inspiring line of all time. 3 innings pitched, just the 1 hit, no runs given up, a couple of walks. But he's been really good as of late. And you do just have to tip your cap to these moments where a guy gets to put a feather in the cap of a career, which, as we said, he's played for everybody already before having even gotten to this point where he gets to make a start, like the journey of a Major League Baseball player just to get to that. Like, it's great when you can be Germán Marquez, and at 23 years old, we're already calling you a future all-star. Most guys aren't that. And Ashton Godot gets to write his name into the history books as someone who started a Major League Baseball game. And he went out there and he showed well for himself, as he's continued to do for most of the second half. So, yeah, he's somebody, he clearly is a Bill Schmidt guy. I think there's not much more of a way to send a clearer message than reacquiring a guy you've brought into the organization before. And, I think he'll be an intriguing piece. He's not someone who's going to move the needle and get you really excited, but every team needs guys like this to be successful, and you could find worse people to root for than Ashton Godot.
He's good people. Ashton's good people. Double unique. First career start, age 29, and passed around the major leagues. And here he goes out does really well, keeps him in this game. Rockies were up 4-0 at one point, and then the rest of the bullpen coughs it up, unfortunately. But congrats there, Ashton.
Will's point that Daniel Bard could be the last pitcher to ever take an at-bat for the Colorado Rockies. So remember that trivia question. Like, what a random you would not have thought it'd be a relief pitcher. What a weird game. What a very strange game. And yeah, as I said on Twitter, probably the most fitting way for this season to end. Like, you thought for a second, hey, maybe, and then you go, oh, nope. And then you go, yeah, well, it's what we thought, had the opportunity. A 74-win team is honestly, again, going back to it, what I thought they was. So, actually even a little bit better than what I thought they was, as it turned out. So
I think I had 66 wins. I think you had 70. So
yeah, and DraftKings had them at 63. So comfortable over there. You got well over that, and there's going to be a lot, folks. I know we couldn't get to it all today. I know there's a lot more thoughts out there. The great thing about this is that we're not going anywhere. The Colorado Rockies have to go home for the winter time, but we are going to be here every day of the off season, just as we normally are. We're going to do a lot of postseason stuff. I think probably more deeply covering the postseason than we have in the past. I'm hoping we can watch a couple of games down at the bar to really get into it. Maybe have our guy Drew Goodman out, watch some games, talk about the current state of baseball. And of course, we're going to do the postmortem on the Colorado Rockies season. We're going to hand out awards for everybody, who actually stood out this year, all that stuff. And dive deeper and deeper into this conversation about the Rockies front office. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? Can it work? Will continue to be a part of the conversation because it needs to be there. But I hope we've at least set that up well enough for everyone out there to say, we hear you, we feel you. It's not easy. It is not easy. And just be happy you're not San Diego Padres fans. Sorry, I had to say one last shot. Thank you all for following us on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick D. Lyons, at DNVR_Rockies. Make sure you subscribe to the DNVR.com for all the written content and the discounts and the access to the Discord channel and the free shirt and the free high fives and all the cool stuff that you get. And other than that, we can only ever ask that you continue being absolutely awesome baseball fans out there, regardless of what baseball throws your way. We know you will be. We'll keep being absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.